afternoon, world. It is moments past noon in Waxahachie, Texas, on January 16th, 2025. This is the 31st episode of Great and Good News. We're broadcasting live from our palatial second story studio across the street from the Waxahachie Sun newspaper in historic Ellis, in the shadows of the historic Ellis County Courthouse. And I'm your co-host, Jeff Lynch. It gives me great pleasure, pride, and honor to introduce my friend and yours, Scott Brooks.
Thank you, Bud. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Grit and Good News on this nice Thursday around noontime. Be good. That felt like golf weather out there. Matter of fact, I was going to suggest Jeff and I head out and play around the golf tomorrow, but I think for me, I'm a wimp. It's still, I mean, it's one thing to stand out there and just stand still and say, this is nice. It's another thing to be in a cart and, all that cold.
Yeah, I was a starter and a marshal up at the golf course yesterday. We had freeze delay. I was there at 7 and we didn't start till 10, and we had about a dozen groups go off between 10 and 12:30.
What'd you do from the 3 hours? Just hang out in the clubhouse?
I re-listened to a podcast.
Yeah.
And I made some notes to myself. I did a little writing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, welcome and thank you for being here. We are only as good as you are in terms of being here and listening and participating. For some of you, we appreciate that and we like it. So feel free to write in, share your comments in real time. You can call us above the Alabama Elephant, Big Al. There is the phone number, and Jeff knows it by heart. Jeff, what is that number?
972-416.
Doesn't
What
know.
I meant to say was
He got wrong.
268-9441, 972-268-9441.
Very good. So we had a great show on Tuesday. We had one of the funniest moments in our show's short history. We love to have fun and laugh, and particularly belly laughing. Belly laughing is the soothe that the whole world needs. If you ask me,
It's elixir for the soul,
yeah,
man.
it really is.
Yeah.
So today we've got a number of things we want to talk to you about, and again, if you have any comments, feel free to share them with us. One of them is, and I pardon the personal reference here, but my career has taken me to a number of different places in America. Most of the places in which I lived and worked for a newspaper were big markets, and some of those were like Buffalo and Baltimore. I worked in Washington, D.C., Denver, Cleveland, Akron,
Madison,
Wisconsin, Montgomery, Alabama, places like that. Waxahachie is probably the smallest of the communities in which I've lived, which was a purpose of mine. But all of those communities, obviously,
it is tied to a metropolitan area, bigger than every single one of those you said.
Yes, true. So the metroplex of Dallas and Fort Worth is about 7 million, maybe it's between 7 and 9 million. I know it's a big gap, but I can't remember which is which. I did that study, some research on it when I was talking about Israel back when the October 7th thing occurred. And the metroplex of DFW is not much different in size than the whole country of Israel.
Right.
So, but in all of those places that I've lived, every single one of them, I think most people in those markets would say we are part of Buffalo.
Right.
We are part of Baltimore, of Denver. We might have our own unique name, but we are part of a metropolitan sprawl, kind of a big, gorilla that's eating us up. And so Buffalo, by example, the homes I lived in up there were probably 30 minutes from Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
But we never referred to, at my home in Clarence, we never referred to Buffalo as though we're a different place. It was where we lived. So we were all kind of
You consider yourself Clarence, or you called yourself Buffalo?
Well, Buffalo.
Yeah.
Right. Nobody, while Clarence or Amherst, New York, where I lived, is maybe a little bit, I'm talking about just a little bit closer to Buffalo than Waxahachie is to Dallas. when somebody would say to me, "Well, where do you live?" I would say, "I live in Buffalo." Uh, Somebody here or somebody out there that says, "Where do you
Mhm.
live now?" I would say, "Waxahachie." I
Right.
don't live in Dallas Fort Worth. I live in Waxahachie, and and I think that's been true of Waxahachie for a long, long time, maybe forever. But it's one of the things that people living here all their life or for a long time may not realize is a real attribute.
No doubt. Let me ask you this question. Is that answer you give different if you're on an airplane or you're out of state somewhere and somebody asks you that, or if you're
Good
at a
question.
Cowboys game,
Yeah.
you say Waxahachie,
Yes.
people know.
Yeah.
But if you're in an airplane, you say Dallas.
Well, if I'm on an
Or
airplane, I will say I live in Waxahachie, Texas, which is about 30 miles south of
that's how
Dallas.
I do it. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't say, if somebody were
Right.
asked, if I was on the same airplane and the same person asked me when I was living in, say, Baltimore, I
Right.
lived in Owings Mills,
Yeah.
which is where the Baltimore Ravens headquarters
Right.
are. Owings Mills, Maryland, which is, again, just like we are to Dallas, it is
Right.
to Baltimore. So if somebody said, "Well, where do you live?" I would have said, then I live in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I don't live in Owings Mills,
Right.
or in Denver. I lived in Littleton. Well, I live in Denver. And so it's just the point I'm wanting us to discuss and making now. Hey, Terry, good afternoon, bud. Nice to have you here. Hope you're feeling good today. The point I want to make is that Waxahachie has its own unique, very distinctive identity, and that I attribute that to men and women who built this place, who have lived here for a long time, although they don't know really that it's an attribute and that it's a distinction worthy of being made more distinct, because so many I don't know that these it's we're not being eaten up by sprawl like other communities, some I've just mentioned,
Right.
are. It's a real positive, cool kind of thing. And there are efforts being made as we sit here to make that distinction even more obvious. So you come in from the north, come in from Dallas. Really, when you get to Waxahachie, short of seeing the signs on the side of the road that say Waxahachie or next 5 exits or whatever, you're in a big. You come to the next city. Right now, the landmarks would be Baylor Scott and White, right?
Right.
And Fanatics, although I haven't been out there to look at Fanatics lately, but Fanatics will be another unintended
Right.
kind of benchmark. If you're coming from the south, there really is, other than maybe a little more density in the signs, there's nothing that says welcome to Waxahachie.
Well, in 1983, when I moved to town, and then I went to work for Lone Star Safety January 3rd of 84, and I had South Dallas, Fair Park, West Dallas,
Hmm.
and everything south. And I had Waxahachie in my territory, and I used to call them the Owens Corning plant
Right.
and fight over the Gatorade business there with a guy that was a longtime resident of this town, and there was nothing I could ever do to wrestle that Gatorade business or any of the other business away from that.
Hmm.
But my point is, as a guy that was living in Dallas, I knew Waxahachie had this string of factories right there on the highway.
Right.
I was, and I'm a guy that kind of likes to get around and see things.
Hmm.
I never found my way into town. I thought it was just a bunch of factories on a highway
Yeah.
because at downtown there's some distance.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are important institutions in our
Yeah.
community. They are not. I don't think any of us would sit around if we were thinking about, okay, how do we want to make our city distinct, or for travelers coming north, south, east, or west from those directions, how do we want people to know they're in Waxahachie? We wouldn't choose a factory.
Smokestacks,
Yeah. So, and I would say, by default, it's pretty nice that we have Baylor Scott and White,
Right.
because it's such a beautiful complex and a campus. But efforts are being made right now. We had a story about it, lead story last Wednesday, about the new fancy uh, electronic billboard that's going to be erected on the
Mm-hmm.
south side over by Brookside on 35, that is going to serve as a welcome
Mm-hmm.
to at the it's I think it's 49 feet high. So once you get below the actual electronic sign, below that will be creative work
Mm-hmm.
in kind of a not monument, but something like that
Brick and
you're.
mortar, brick,
Yeah,
stone. Yeah.
yeah. And you'll know you're you're coming into Waxahachie.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a pole that holds up a big sign.
Yeah.
It's a welcome, intended to be a welcome. So, and I do think that there's going to likely be the same kind of approach taken on either on 287 as you're coming in from from Midlothian.
West.
So, and at some point it would be awesome, and I think this will likely happen at some point. But that welcoming, that distinction will be on all 4 points. So, but because Waxahachie must remain unique, must remain Waxahachie. I've often thought, well, if Sammy had made it to a pro league, and or some, say, college ball, and it gave a bio, what would Sammy, or what would any of our players who do, because we have some players in the NFL, we have some players that are at colleges.
By the way, Heim resigned.
Oh, did he?
Johan, yeah.
Did it say how much?
Yeah, 4.5. He was arbitration. It was between 4 million and 4.8, and he ended up
At 4.5.
settling on their own instead of the arbitrator's picking the high or the low.
And
He
you gotta
doesn't
go
he
with
doesn't
it.
give any middle ground, but they got a number 4.55, I think.
How many years?
Per year? Yeah, how many years?
I cannot recall. It wasn't a 1-year deal.
So we got
Okay.
multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It
so
wasn't long term.
that'd be something we want to cover if we still lived here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll look. I'll look that up
Yeah.
when we're done here. But if in his case, like Sam, well, he wouldn't say it because he's from Buffalo.
Well, they always say Waxahachie.
Yeah.
Like on TV and stuff.
So yeah, so that's the point, is that if a bio for Sammy, shooting guard, whatever, at Gonzaga, hometown, do they put Dallas, or would they put Waxahachie?
So
Right.
I play the college football game on my PlayStation.
Yeah.
There's a kid who plays for Colorado who went to Waxahachie. It says Waxahachie as his hometown.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah. So that says distinct in and of itself, in a small, maybe insignificant way. But the point is, those listening that have lived here for their whole lives, I hope you understand just what a quality and an attribute and a wonderful thing it is for Waxahachie to be a place where people would want to say, or do say, I am from Waxahachie, Texas.
I think part of our uniqueness goes back to the history. It goes back to the cotton farming way back.
Yeah.
Goes back to the fact that we've got railroad tracks running through here that ran through here in the mid 1800s. I remember my BNSF customer. I remember one time in the 90s, right, but the old BN, before they merged with BN with Santa Fe to become BNSF.
Yeah.
They were the product of 130 railroads merging, going back to 1845. So like in 150 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and they just kind of come down, and now there's 7 major railroads in the United States. But the fact that we had railroads going through there all that time, that's part of what enabled us to have industry. That's part of why we have a downtown courthouse.
Right.
And when I think of, you compare us to the north side, Sam, do a quick search and say, what's the distance between Dallas and McKinney? And well, I was getting that. So here's the deal. Up there on the north side, Plano, I lived there in the 80s. That
on
was
the Metroplex, on the north side of Metroplex. Yeah.
it is 40 minutes, 33.1 miles.
33.1 miles. We are 28 to downtown from here. So we're the same distance.
Yeah.
Okay. But Plano used to be really the end of it. McKinney was its own small town.
Mm-hmm.
Allen was its own smaller town.
Yeah.
But they were considered out there.
Yeah.
But as the city grew north,
Mm-hmm.
that Plano, McKinney, Allen, it's all condensed. And down here, here's our difference. You got Dallas and South Dallas, Oak Cliff, and Oak Cliff is cutting off at about Camp Wisdom Road.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's about 18 miles
Right.
up the freeway. And then you got your DeSoto, and then you got your Red Oak, and you got your Ovilla, and
Glen Heights.
And Glen Heights. And those towns have some small commercial presence on 35, but really mostly they're bedroom communities that go out.
Yeah.
And then you get down here. So we've got some separation from the big town, and that makes us more our own.
It does.
And there's no mass transit.
And so that's the kind of what I'm saying is that, again, go back to Clarence.
Yeah.
Clarence Center is what it's called. Same distance,
Yeah.
no mass transit there,
Yeah.
but it was Buffalo.
Right.
Here it's Waxahachie.
Yeah, exactly.
And
God bless it.
It is an amazing thing. And so we want to work hard to make sure we keep it that way. We're called the Waxahachie Sun largely because we're all Waxahachie now as we become the official paper of more communities. Right now we're the official paper of course, Waxahachie, but then you get to Maypearl, Red Oak, Ovilla, let's see, Milford, Italy. You know, we're going to have stories about those communities because we're their primary paper,
And
the official paper.
and the name's never going to go Ellis County. It's
No,
never
it's
going
not.
Ellis County.
It's not because we will continue to be, 80% Waxahachie stuff as we grow to represent these other communities. But I thought it would be a good discussion for people to realize that we are distinct, we are different, we are high quality, we are everything a community would want to be. And that's why we at the Sun and through Grit and Good News and through our app and through our other products that we send out every month to newcomers, we want to make sure people know that we are just that, distinct. And for me, I've talked about this before, almost building an imaginary moat around the community to say, you want to bring in drag queen crap, you want to bring in all that transgenderism nonsense, you want to bring in allow open borders to impact our community and so on and so forth. There's at least going to be one, I guess now we're called a legacy company because we've been here for a while. There's going to be one that's going to fight you. We're not going to allow that stuff to happen.
6 or 7 years doesn't get your legacy.
Well, I don't know what you would call it then. We're not startup.
No.
So I don't know what we call ourselves. Just
a well-established publication.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
But the idea is to protect Waxahachie in all of its distinction.
Are we ready for week 2 out of our ad man?
The voice of Grit and Good News. What do you got, Sam?
We got Cancun's.
Oh boy.
We love Cancun's, don't we?
Yes.
Cancun's is a great breakfast, lunch, and dinner spot here in Waxahachie. It is located on 77, 2.5 miles north of 287 on the west side. It has a beautiful building. Like my dad says, it's a merry Tex-Mex, so you do have plenty of options to choose from. If you download our Down Home app off the Google Play Store or the App Store, you can check the coupon corner, and if you spend $20, which you will, you get a free order of their sopapillas. Very nice people, a great experience. You should go check out Cancun's.
Thank you, bud.
And Terry points out the unique structure of our courthouse is very recognizable.
Yeah, Terry's a guy well known, well liked, well respected. Been here his whole life. His parents have been here. I'm a part of our family, and his mom and dad have lived in their home since I believe 1961.
Nice.
That's the year I was born.
Nice.
And so, and when you can live in think of this: when you can live in the same house that you bought 61 years ago in a community, and it's still, and the value has risen exponentially, obviously. But and it's still rising of that home. That's a really cool thing.
That was Terry's house growing up, or okay.
Yeah.
He didn't buy that.
No, that's Terry's parents' house, and Terry's house is about 10 houses down the road from. But the idea, you go to a community like Dallas, in some of those areas, 60 years ago, the home that somebody bought that was nice then is now in the middle of, whether it be a war zone or whether it be a trashy place. I mean, that happens in communities. And our community, the homes that people bought years ago are still solid, and I'm not talking about construction-wise, but solid and of value because our community has remained such high quality. I'm going to finish with this. Waxahachie is known for so many things. Terry talks about and most people do, our courthouse. But when you think about Waxahachie, Waxahachie is the headquarters of the state's largest community bank, CNB. In my view, the best bank I've ever dealt with. But it's it's right here. We have Fanatics chose of all the places it could go in the world. It chose Waxahachie, not
Right.
Dallas, Waxahachie. And those we could go on all day with things like that. So, all right, I wrote a column yesterday titled, well, in the exact title, but MEI versus DEI. We know that DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I want to say, throw up, throw up, throw up. I wrote the column that says MEI, which is merit, excellence, and intelligence.
But you didn't make that up. MEI
No.
exists.
No.
But let me tell you one thing. I was trying to be as ready as I could for this segment. And when I looked up MEI on Google, could barely find it. I had to hunt and hunt and hunt
Really?
on Google. And interestingly, the list we'll get when we get to the list of companies
Mm-hmm.
who no
Who
longer
dropped it?
have dropped the DEI.
Yeah.
Meta is part of it.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
It's an amazing.
But you know, Google and
They're still in
Meta,
it.
they don't yeehaw together, do they?
No, they
No.
don't. We should have a segment just on what's happening with Facebook and Meta because it is an example of a company where a young guy is a multi-billionaire, which I argue, although I would be willing to try being a billionaire for a couple of days, I argue being a billionaire. I've had the pleasure of working for one. It does not make you a happy person.
No.
Mark Zuckerberg is flipping his company to be something totally different than what it has been. But MEI is the concept of MEI, which is a common phrase, and books have been written about it, and so on and so forth. Is to say, let's throw out this nonsense that your identity, whether it be your gender, your color, your sexual orientation.
The list has got some things that
Yeah. So
they gave it in this order. Okay.
you talking about DEI or
DEI.
Yeah.
Gender.
Yeah.
Ethnicity, sex orientation, disability, age, culture, class, religion, opinion. Opinion? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So DEI.
Sam, we want you here because you've got such strong opinions about college sports.
Yeah. I mean, that it's a concept that's gone haywire, and why somebody couldn't view that or figure that out from the beginning is beyond me. Of course, the Sun or any other company I've worked for, even the corporate ones, have not. I mean, we've had our diversity focus, which was to say, try to represent or try to make, do your best in making sure that your company via your people represents the communities that you live in.
You had outside people in doing diversity training, you mean?
And
Yeah, okay.
but it was, I think that might have been once or twice every couple of years, something like that. I didn't mind that because I needed to be reminded that, we do need to represent our
Right.
community. And in the Sun right now, if you look at our mix up, we've got mostly women.
Mhm.
We've got 2 African Americans. We have young as Sam is the youngest, 20, and the oldest would be me now at 63. So we've tried to make sure that we represent the complexion of our community. We also have as a contractor that works for us, Hispanic. So the point is that I like that, but
Mhm.
not to the exclusion of putting out a great product and having a great company, which is the whole point of DEI. MEI says just hire based on people's ability to get the work done. And some moron on my column posted, I probably shouldn't have said moron, but somebody
You've been
posted,
saying that fairly often.
yeah, but posted on my column that I've been a part of purging people that don't fit my opinion or don't fit, this mold or that mold. I that couldn't be. I mean, I don't take offense to it.
I think you've gotten better at it in the last 6 weeks.
I mean, let's see, August of 2018 until September of 2024, our editor was a I would say not hard left, but certainly a well-known Democrat in our community, and
Right.
I hired her in part because of that. I don't really care. We don't walk around in our office and with this mandate or that mandate as to what you got to do and who you got to vote for and who you got to love and all that stuff.
When I was first getting to know you, you told me, you said, Jeff, I like you. We're developing a nice friendship. I would never hire you because you think too much like me.
Oh
And,
yeah,
and I don't want that.
yeah, right.
Okay. But now I think just enough like you for us to have the show together.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have some chemistry.
Yeah.
Actually, you got to have a lot of chemistry to have a show. But that's right. That's the old adage that says if two people think alike, only one of them's needed.
Right.
So DEI is DEI. If I adhered to DEI as a company, as a business owner, then I would I would just be out looking for people of certain colors, of certain nationalities, of certain political affiliations, of certain with respect to the opinion. If DEI, if I was doing it by DEI, I would say, well, I got to have somebody that I can't have somebody that likes A&M or Auburn.
Right.
It's so awful to me.
I was trying to do a little research on how it snowballed to become what it became.
Yeah.
Before it's now. Snowballs do melt, don't they? I just
Yeah, they do.
But you could say was slavery the beginning? No, because guess what? Freeing people from slavery didn't make them anywhere near equal.
Mm.
Was women's suffrage
hmm
in the 20s? It gave them a right to vote, but boy, it didn't give them a right to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
The real turning point was 1965 with LBJ with his executive order regarding hiring without regard to any of these categories.
Right. Yeah.
That was in 65. But it was an executive order. It didn't have any real teeth. And I don't know that it made a huge difference.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that turned it was in 2020, the great 2020, and all that was going on, it really started with George Floyd,
hmm
and then the Black Lives Matter came out, and the
hmm
Black Lives Matter, I think, was what really turned the DEI train on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see it. Something had to be the impetus for it because,
Yeah.
I mean, it's always existed again, that even in your companies that you work for, diversity is an important thing. I don't
Sure,
mean to suggest it's
sure.
not, but when it comes to the guide by which, or the standards by which you do everything, it's obnoxious and it's damaging. It is one of the most damaging things in society. And for companies, these, as you mentioned, Meta is just one of them, but many companies are now in universities, which I say academia is one of the 4 pillars of failure in our country, largely because of this. But even some of those are saying we're getting rid of our diversity people. There are companies that have hundreds of people that work in diversity
Just the department.
departments.
Just the department.
The government has, I don't know how many hundreds of people working in a diversity department. I'm like, what do these people do all day long?
So if you applied for a job with that government agency or that company that you knew had a DEI program, and you knew that you were hired because of one of these categories that we talked about, basically anything besides a white male, any of those other reasons,
Yeah.
and you got in that job and you found out, I'm not really qualified for this. I'm over my head. I'm struggling. People must look at me saying, we just brought him on because we had to, and now look at he's dragging down our department. He's dragging down our company. How would you like that? I don't think I'd be very comfortable with that.
Look at the Secret Service.
Right.
I think we're talking about a DEI because DEI is so important in Biden's administration and the, thank goodness it's about to be over, but the administration and the government, that it ends up creating the very in obvious ways. It's a perfect picture of how DEI is so bad. So were the California fires. When you're paying the water director or whatever her silly title is, who's African American, $750,000 a year, largely because she's African American, you end up with situations with like what we see in California, incompetence that leads to people dying. It's the old thing about, well, do I want to get on an airplane that's run by an airline that's so full of DEI I can't see straight, and thereby have a pilot or a co-pilot who's not necessarily flying the plane because they're competent or they have the great ability, but because of their color, where they what they claim to be as transgender. I mean, for the last 4 years, we've looked at some of the most hideous people I could think of to be in charge of things in the government because they are transgender or again, this color or that color or whatever all those because we got to have more of this nationality working for us. I mean,
class.
Yeah, it's insane. It's I don't even those people who walk around with DEI as though it's the biggest important thing. To me, honestly, I just want to slap them. I mean, it's so obnoxious.
This is just a top cut of big companies. This is nowhere near inclusive.
Yeah.
And I want you to listen to this list and say that not one of these companies has anything to do with another company. It's not like you were one of these companies and, oh, I got to do the same thing because my competitor is doing it.
Right.
Totally different realms of business.
Right, yeah.
You ready to go? McDonald's, Meta,
Mm-hmm.
Ford Motor,
Mm-hmm.
Molson Coors, John Deere, Tractor Supply, Toyota.
Are these the ones that have been in had DEI big presence and now are dropping it?
Have completely dropped it.
Yeah,
and that's all recently.
and that's a sample list.
That's just a skimming off the top.
Well, the government's about to be the biggest one. When Trump takes over next week, DEI's out the window.
Well, in the whole education world banned it, didn't it? Well, I know they did at the college level.
Most, well, I don't know about most colleges, but name where the institutions, academic institutions, have said we don't have DEI anymore. And I don't think they're doing it because they know Trump's coming in and there's going to be pressure to get rid of it. I think they do it because they understand and have experienced, like Mark Zuckerberg. Facebook has experienced the awful results of DEI.
The quality of their workers went down.
Yeah, and the quality of their
or the quality of students will go down.
Well, it's like Mark Zuckerberg said the other day, in paraphrasing, we can't have fact checkers who are DEI because their opinions are maybe so far afield that they will do just what they did, and that was ban this or ban that because it offended them. And it's just, I'm glad it's going away. Everyone should be considered that has merit, excellence, and intelligence to do the job. If we can do that and have a diverse company, then that's what we're going to do at the Sun, like we do now.
And it always used to be in terms you're applying for colleges. Okay, you got your grade school, you got your class rank. My wife always teases me about mine, and I'm not going to tell you people what it was, but it didn't start with a 5 or up.
Yeah.
All right, and so you go to apply for colleges. And there's certain colleges I'm not even going to spend my time applying because I can't get in there. It's not because I can't afford to go there or don't want to go there. I can't get into that school. And so thankfully, it's like in golf where we've got different sets of tee box for different abilities. We do have different sets of schools for different abilities. Right. And there's a place for everywhere if you want to go to college. But not everybody's going to go to every college. And guess what? These smaller, not as highly rated colleges, they don't have DEI programs. They don't need DEI programs. They'll take whoever wants to come. And, if you're literate, you can come here. Yeah. But it's the big ones. It's the highly touted ones that get a little bit.
I agree. Yeah. So I think as I closed my column yesterday saying DEI just casts dark shadows.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened in our society. All right. Sammy. How about Mr. Reuter?
Let me get it pulled up for the people.
You think they're going to be busy next week?
with all the
Mr.
cold
Reuter?
coming.
with
They
freezes coming.
probably will.
They're
Yeah,
gonna be so busy.
Oh my God!
we got Siberian weather on the way. All right,
All
Sam.
right. Mr. Reuter. Mr. Reuter is located all over North America, but they are also located here in Waxahachie. This is what you will expect should you call them. They do residential and commercial work. You are always going to get licensed experts. They are going to arrive on time and keep your house clean with mats and shoe covers. They are going to be friendly to every client. They always provide a price before they start, and they can also do remodeling. You can call at 469-240-3113 or reach them on the web at mrreuter.com/Waxahachie.
Will they remodel my kitchen?
Yes.
They'll do kitchens too.
Oh, it's only bathrooms?
Bathrooms.
Oh, I thought it was kitchens and bathrooms.
No.
Oh. Just
No.
bathrooms. Just
Just
bathrooms.
Speaking of that,
Are you done yet?
No, my house is being gutted to put in new floors, new cabinets, new sinks. I mean, it's brutal. It's brutal. Anyway, all right. 5 random thoughts from the old Scottster today.
All right, what
you
you
ready?
got?
I did these. The thing that makes them random is if you ran into me on the street and just said, "Give me 5 thoughts." So what I try to do to be legit about this is this morning I sat down at my desk and I put everything aside and I said, I'm going to take 2 minutes and I'm going to write down 5 things. And I
Mhm.
did. So here's what they are. Pets are one of God's most precious gifts to us. No doubt,
Right.
right? Mike McCarthy is a very good football coach. And the idea is, I'm ad-libbing now. The idea that Jerry Jones prevented him from talking to the Chicago Bears, and then days later, Mike McCarthy's gone from the Cowboys is pretty slimy. First of all, secondly, Jerry Jones is looking for something that doesn't exist, and that is the golden egg. Because the golden egg means Jerry Jones had to get rid of Jerry Jones.
Don't you think he wishes that he had a son that instead of being a clone of him was a coach
Yeah.
that could coach a lick?
Yeah. If my daddy was Jerry Jones, my dad and I had the same relationship Sammy and I do, but I'd say, Dad, stop. And my dad would have listened. He would, I said, just be the owner and be seen as the man at the top and be yourself, but get the experts in here and let's be a dynasty. Number 3, we only die once. We hear people still say you only live once. Is that a saying like
It was a
Bolo
James Bond
YOLO?
movie, wasn't it?
You only live once. Truth is, we only die once. We live again and again and again, meaning that we can resurrect ourselves. We can come back, right? But we only die once.
Reinvent.
Loyalty is an attribute of a really special person. The ability to be loyal to someone that you've said you will be loyal to is, unfortunately, it's rarer today than, in my opinion, than ever before. Thankfully, I have folks in my life that I think are like that, but I also have folks in my life that aren't very loyal, and could give you some examples, but that'd be for another show. And then last, there's a saying called, I used to have it on my license plate when I lived in Cleveland when Sammy was born. It says, go 3 more feet.
Go 3 more feet.
Go 3 more feet is from a story about a gold miner in San Francisco back in the day who bought a bunch of land because he was convinced and told that there was gold there. So he was a gold digger. And so he got there, got all his people and his stuff and started digging and digging and digging and digging and couldn't hit pay dirt, as they say, and sold the land to another guy who still believed that there was gold there, and he dug 3 more feet, and voila, there was gold. So the idea is to say, you go 3 more feet with what you're working on, go 3 more feet, and you're likely to find pay dirt. It's when you go 3 more feet, and then you go 3 more feet, and you go 3 more feet, and before you've lost everything before you discover there is no pay dirt. The idea, because I'll tell you this much, with respect to the Waxahachie Sun, we opened at a time when newspapers were what they are now. There were times in our first couple of years where I could have said, I just don't want to keep doing this. It's brutal. It's tough. But I kept saying to myself this very thing, go 3 more feet. And I'm still saying go 3 more feet because we just launched a whole array of products that we invested a lot in. And so now I'm saying we're going to go 3 more feet and we'll hit pay dirt. I believe that. So anyway, there's my random.
Terry, thank you. Jerry Jones needs to sell out, get a true GM for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
You're the first person I've ever heard say that, Terry.
I'd buy it, the Cowboys. You know what?
What's your thought on Kellen Moore getting interviewed?
No.
You don't like him?
I like him, but I don't think he's the one.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think
he was the boy wonder, but I don't know. I wonder.
Well, he's done a good job at Philadelphia. Is it Philly?
Jets.
No,
Philly?
he's at Philadelphia. He went to the Chargers, then they brought in Harbaugh, and then he went to the Eagles. But I'm looking at coaches like I think Cliff Kingsbury, the offensive coordinator of the Commanders, who was at the Cardinals, would be a good one.
Quarterback teaching wonder.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not against Dion. I think Dion could instill what the Cowboys have lost over the years because of losing. Not losing, but because we haven't won the big one. It's not we haven't been a losing team. We've just not been a winner.
From a selfish standpoint, as a season ticket holder who's taken it on the rear the whole second half of this year, losing game after game after game on selling it way below cost and giving tickets away. There's only one person on anybody's list that I think is going to put butts in the seat, and that's Prime.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, I need Prime.
Yeah.
I need Prime to keep it.
Well, I think that's if I were a betting man and somebody said who's going to be the next Cowboy of the coach of the Cowboys, I would say Deion Sanders right now. Whether or not that works, I don't know. But
I think that affects our draft.
I think it affects everything. I really do. Most of all, it puts us, not most of all, but it certainly puts us back to a scenario much like Jerry Jones had with Jimmy Johnson. And that is a relationship with a guy, well-known, somewhat flamboyant, because Jimmy Johnson was back then, opinionated, strong-willed, just like Deion. Will that work? Because if Deion comes in and said, we gotta get this quarterback or that player, and Jerry Jones doesn't want to, who's gonna win out?
Yeah.
All right, so under our he said she said today is a really interesting topic. We're going to spend about 5 minutes on it because we've been talking about a number of things a little longer than usual. But the question is, Terry says Aaron Glenn, from defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, is could be one for sure. The question I have as I watch the NCAA ball and the NFL and being a sports fanatic, and given where NIL is taking the NCAA, is the NCAA becoming ever so gradually a competitor in some ways to the NFL?
When they were traditionally the NFL's pre-minor league.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So now,
and they are still a free minor league because all that NIL money, it's not coming from the NFL.
No, it's not.
Coming from boosters.
So the idea for me is it becoming a competitor in the sense that money is flowing, millions and millions and millions? There have been the quarterback from Georgia, that Carson Beck, was going to go to the NFL. Carson Beck then was told that his projected draft position in the NFL would earn him less than going to University of Miami, and being the quarterback there for his senior year or his last year. I think that's actually happening in a number of different ways. We don't hear about a lot of them, but it's true. If Carson Beck, and I don't know what the numbers are, but I know that yours or some of those players, we're talking in some examples $6 million a year. If a college player who is now NFL eligible, and that in the college is different in football than basketball, baseball, college football, you have to be a certain age to be drafted by the NFL, and you have to have played in college for a certain number of years. I think it's at least 2. You have to be a junior, I think, before you can go to the NFL
Or
draft,
you can declare, yeah.
and you have to be a certain age. You never have heard a high school student going directly from high school to the NFL, for good reason.
Mhm.
I would like to
Boys
see
amongst men.
exactly. So, but is the NCAA becoming a competitive league? Because now there's talk, and I think we're going to see it happen. Each of these conferences, all of them, whether they're Big Five, Big Four, whether they're mid-level, whether they're in the FBS, whether it's Division III, all these conferences have a commissioner. And so now there's talk about, well, the NCAA, which is, in my view, a corrupt-run organization. Speaking of DEI, the president of the NCAA is as drunk on DEI as anybody out there, and is wanting men to be able to, biological men, to still play in women's sports in the NCAA. And he got hammered on Capitol Hill for it, as he should have. But now there's talk that the NCAA needs a commissioner. And a number of people have said that commissioner, matter of fact, it was one of the talking heads, I don't know if it was Cowherd or one of them, said, I'm going to tell you, the commissioner of the NCAA ought to be Nick Saban, because he knows how to run organizations. He's big time athletics. And so I think what we're seeing happen before our eyes, without it actually being said, is that the NCAA, for a select group of people, a very thin market of people, because they have to be a certain age, and they're the men and women who are eligible to go pro, because we're not just talking
Mhm.
football in terms of NIL, but we're talking football in terms of the NFL competing with the NCAA. In that case, football NCAA, there is a group of young men who are going to hear that you can make more in college with NIL than you can going to the pros and with your contract, at least for a couple of
And
years.
coming out early
Yeah,
will be less of a thing,
that's right. So we're
Yeah.
going to start to see more
which is
teams.
actually good.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good thing. We won't see. I mean, I was frankly surprised after Jalen Milroe's lousy play during the, 2 or 3 or 4 final games that Bama had, that he would go pro, because he was making a decent amount of money in NIL. So it's going to cause players, I think, and teams to stay together longer.
Good.
It's going to create a competitor to the NCAA, to the NFL, which the NFL needs, because it's arrogant and pompous.
I'm not mistaken if I say Carson Beck will be making more money than Brock Purdy next year, right?
Well, not next year, because I think Brock Purdy's about to
About to
sign
get
a
paid.
Purdy deal.
But
Yeah.
say if it was,
If it was the same as, Brock Purdy is making less than $1 million a
yeah,
year.
that's insane. He's a
So
starter quarterback.
there are not superstars in the NCAA that are making more money in NIL than the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers.
I believe I read a few things about college ball giving pro ball a run for its money on ratings
Yeah.
in December. And
Yeah.
here's what college has that pros don't have. They've got a huge diverse base, because you got schools all over playing college ball, and you got intense loyalty to people for their school that aren't in the one of well, there's 32 teams, and there's a couple of multis. What do we got? 28 cities. You
Mhm.
got so many more cities than 28
Yeah.
cities.
Yeah, you're right.
You got these tremendous regional rivalries.
Yeah.
They're just these regional rivalries in college are stronger than any pro rivalries that we have.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. You've got youth who may not care about pro football at all.
Yeah.
You telling me all those people at that? Well, Texas is a strange situation because they've got 2 pro teams already
Yeah.
in the state. But there's a lot of kids that are big followers of college ball that I don't think their interest always carries over to the NFL.
Yeah, that's especially true.
Okay.
We're not talking about basketball per se, but I think that's really true when it gets to the NBA.
Yeah.
That the college love for college basketball, in my opinion, is much greater by the average person than NBA.
And then you hear this so many times on on broadcast, and it's so true when you see it. The color in pageantry
Yeah,
is unrivaled, and
no
and
doubt.
and and, and give me a wholesome uh,
Yeah,
college cheerleader over these. The pro girls
yeah,
look like they're working at dance clubs at
yeah.
night. You know.
You know, you could, for me, I don't know if you guys, this will ring true with you, but I can close my eyes and you put on, if I could say, Sammy, put on a football game. Don't tell me if it's college or if it's NFL.
You'd be able to.
And don't just pick a time when maybe the talking heads aren't talking, and just listen. You can distinctly tell which is a college and which is a pro. I'm telling you,
You
the
absolutely can.
drum sounds, the cheerleader sounds, just the nature of you can tell it's totally different.
Yeah.
All right, rhyme time.
What we
What do you
got?
got?
What we got?
And Sammy will be up Pier 7 after that.
What are we looking at? What did I say? One
You said 143. Dog lives matter.
dogs.
Dog lives matter.
Dogs.
Doggone right.
You had a little typo. It doesn't say dogs. It says dog. So dog lives matter.
And it should, yes, thank you for that type of dogs lives matter. This was written in July of 2020. It was the sixth poem that went in that book I was holding up of 2020 hindsights. You know, I'd written one, the greatness, the greatness of you can't get your haircut on the internet back in 2003. But then I went
COVID poem.
went fallow, and so many of these first poems I wrote in the first 2-3 months were so political because that was
Yeah.
the most
Yeah, that was a
tumultuous
difficult time.
times of
Yeah,
our
it was
times. And
difficult.
finally, I burnt out and I quit writing for a whole month. And what did I do? I turned around and wrote 4 hockey poems in 3 weeks. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Dogs' lives matter. Even dogs' lives matter. Yes, dogs' lives matter. All God's creatures deserve to live. Jesus told the people, yes, he did. We got the SPCA to be kind to critters every day. Then there's the NAACP, ensures folks of color get their dignity. Black lives matter. All lives matter.
Amen.
Black, white, Latino, Indian, Asian, Eskimo. No matter what you name them, hate has become the show. Do you treat all folks the same? Come on, time to confess. If not, you're a hypocrite and a huge part of this mess. R.I.P. George Floyd and many other a kindred soul. The same sad story has grown mighty old. We're not using enough love, the secret ancient tool. Without loving your heart, you surely are a fool. Simply love your neighbor is the most important part, lest we lose our direction and the world falls apart.
Preach it. Very
Preach it,
good.
preach
Very,
it.
very good. All right,
Very good.
Sammy.
Thank you.
Pier 7. If you love seafood, Pier 7 is the way to go. Located on I-35 about 10 minutes north of Waxahachie, you won't miss their big Pier 7 sign. They're in a popular area. They have great service with a fun bar and outstanding food. They have great deals, like if you spend $30, you get 12 calamari. Spend $50, you get one order of egg rolls. Spend $100 and get a free order of shrimp fried rice. If you find yourself wanting some great seafood, head over to Pier 7.
Very good. Thank you, Sam. All right.
Today in history, 6 and 2, with 8 possible. I had 1 bonus, and I expect you to get it also, Sammy. I'd love for you to get it.
All right,
All
let's
right.
go.
All right. Union Major William Tecumseh Sherman decreed that 400,000 acres of land in the South would be divided into 40-acre lots and given to former slaves. That was also called 40 acres in a mule.
Mm.
The order, later revoked by President Andrew Johnson, inspired the expression 40 acres in a mule.
1888.
1884.
1865.
Dang.
Ooh, that was
Okay,
right
come on.
after the Civil War.
Yeah, I went 66. I didn't go close enough.
Mm.
Here we go. Actor Carol Lombard, 33. Her mother, Elizabeth Peters, and 20 other people were killed when their plane crashed near Las Vegas, Nevada, while returning to California from a war bond promotion tour.
Hmm.
From a war bond promotion tour.
Mhm.
I don't know when planes came into the picture.
And the clue Jeff just gave us war. And so doesn't say which war.
No, it does not tell you which one.
1918?
1947.
1942. I got the
Dang.
bonus, and
Did you really?
here's what I said. Pearl Harbor, December of 41.
Right.
And I'm thinking, you know what? The government got stoking this up and said, we got to sell these war bonds to make money for the war. And we're going to get all these great, pretty girls and entertainers out there. And boom, there it was. So
Yep. It's been thinking.
I thunk it through. Here we go. St. Louis Cardinals center fielder Kurt Flood filed a $1 million antitrust lawsuit against Major League Baseball and Major League Commissioner blank bonus. Major League Commissioner blank arguing for the right to free agency. He won that thing. He was the start. He was how free agency started when Kurt Flood.
Yeah, so it had to be a lot before Bud Selig, I think, was the
1977.
commissioner. 1968.
1970. You got
I got it.
1970?
Yep.
I don't know who the commissioner was then.
Who was it?
Bowie Kuhn.
Oh, yeah.
Bowie Kuhn.
Yep.
3 days of rioting began in Miami when a police officer fatally shot Clement Lloyd, a black motorcyclist, causing a crash that also claimed the life of Lloyd's passenger, Alan Blanchard. The officer, William Lozano, was convicted of manslaughter, but he was acquitted on a retrial.
The last
I
date
had
was
no clue.
Yeah,
2002.
1990.
89.
Oh, gotta go with your gut. I was gonna say
Booyah.
86.
In a
Dang.
televised address to the nation. 46, Terry, by the way, was on the war bond. You're in the ballpark there, brother. In a televised address to the nation, President George H.W. Bush announced the start of Operation Desert Storm, an Allied combat operation to drive Iraqi forces out of Kuwait. I missed this by one.
What was the last date?
Last date was 89.
I'm gonna go 2003.
George H.W.
H.W. Papa.
88.
91.
Okay.
And we close with Wayne Newton performed his 25,000th Las Vegas show. Newton had performed more shows as a headliner in Las Vegas than any other entertainer. He was Mr. Las Vegas, and I've never seen him there. And I've been to Vegas a bunch of times.
2007.
2020.
96.
1996?
1996.
Wow.
That's where it ends?
That's the last one.
For him, wow. I was born to.
Don't you just Sam? Well, you did some overthinking.
I got one right.
Yeah, Wayne Newton, man. I mean, he's always had that. What was Shaka?
Shaka Khan?
No, but he had that song that sounded weird. But Terry said 1991. I don't know what question that was, but Wayne Newton's weird, man. He looks weird now. All that plastic surgery.
That mustache. It was like that was a loot.
It was.
What do you call it? Used car salesman
Yeah, I
mustache,
don't
wasn't
know.
it?
All right. Thank you for being here. We're going to close with our meme. Sammy needs to put it up on the screen because it's in color and the illustration makes the point.
It's on.
All right. So this goes back to the theory that I don't know what the percent is. I don't even know how you figure it out, but I would say 90% of what we fear
And before you
never happens.
Tell the people who can't see it what the pictures
They can
are.
see it on the screen.
Well, some people just listen.
Okay. Yeah. So the idea is got a big little mouse. It's got a little mouse staring up at what he perceives to be this gigantic cat that's trying to get him. And it says, "My fears before I face them." Then it shows the next slide is a bigger mouse with a smaller kitten. It says, "My fears after I face them." And that's the whole point.
You know what show that is, Dad?
That's Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
But the point is that, man, we make so much of the giants we create and the fears we create in our minds. They either don't exist, or when we finally bow up and say, you know what, bring it on, we recognize either they didn't exist or that they exist, but they're infinitesimally smaller than what I thought.
And was it the great Winston Churchill who said,
We have
But
nothing
fear-
to fear
but
but
fear
fear,
itself. Yeah.
itself.
All right. Thank y'all for being here. We'll see you next Tuesday when it's going to be Siberia outside.
Cold.
All right.
and don't forget, don't write a check you can't cash. Boom.
Boom.
Very good. Thank you, brother.